AMD posted a CPU launch video, but gamers only wanted one answer. AMD just posted a launch video for its new Ryzen 9 9950X 3D2 processor, but that is not what a huge part of the audience wanted to talk about. Instead of focusing on the CPU itself, a large share of the comments turned into a demand for one thing: FSR 4 support on older Radeon graphics cards. And that says a lot about where the real conversation is right now. AMD wanted the spotlight on a new flagship CPU. The community turned that moment into a debate about graphics features, compatibility, and whether owners of older Radeon GPUs are being left behind. That is what makes this story so interesting. On paper, this should have been a simple product launch. New CPU, fresh marketing push, lots of hype around gaming performance, creator workloads, and AMD continuing to push its high-end desktop lineup. But instead, the comment section became a pressure campaign. Now, comment sections are not perfect data. They are not scientific polling. But they do show what people care enough about to stop and complain about in public. And when a big chunk of the discussion under a brand new launch video is about a completely different issue, that is not random noise. That is a signal. It means AMD is dealing with more than just a product question. It is dealing with a communication problem. Radeon users are no longer quietly waiting for answers on FSR 4. They are showing up under unrelated launch content and pushing the subject into the spotlight. So let's break down why this is happening, why so many people are upset, and why this issue keeps following AMD around. First, we need to talk about what FSR 4 actually is. For people who do not follow every GPU feature update, FSR stands for Fidelity FX Super Resolution. It is AMD's upscaling technology, designed to improve performance by rendering a game at a lower internal resolution and then reconstructing it to look closer to a higher resolution. Earlier versions of FSR became popular because they were broad and flexible. They worked across a wide range of hardware, and that gave AMD a very strong talking point. Even if you did not own the newest Radeon card, you could still feel like you were part of the ecosystem. But FSR 4 is different. This newer generation is tied much more closely to machine learning. AMD has positioned its latest upscaling and related image technologies around the newer Radeon RX 9000 series and RDNA 4 hardware. In other words, the newest version is not being treated like a universal feature in the same way older FSR releases were. And that is where the frustration starts. This is not a question of whether older Radeon cards can use any kind of upscaling at all. They can. Older FSR versions still exist, and they still matter. The real issue is that the newer, more desirable, machine learning-driven quality leap is not officially available to a lot of people who already bought into Radeon. So if you are sitting there with an RX 6000 series or RX 7000 series card, you are probably not looking at FSR 4 and saying, wow, that is nice for future buyers. You are more likely asking a much sharper question. Why is the next big jump in image quality happening right after I invested in this ecosystem? That emotional reaction is very easy to understand. A lot of AMD fans supported Radeon during years when the company was trying to rebuild excitement in the GPU space. Many of those people bought RDNA 2 or RDNA 3 products expecting that AMD's software ecosystem would continue to grow around them. So when the company's newest and most attractive image enhancement technology suddenly appears to be reserved for newer hardware, it feels like the rules changed. Even if AMD has valid technical reasons, that is not how it feels from the customer side. From the community point of view, the message sounds more like this: FSR used to feel open and wide-reaching. Now the premium version feels locked behind a new hardware tier. And once that feeling takes hold, every piece of silence from AMD makes the situation worse. That is the second part of this story. The anger is not just about the feature itself. It is also about the lack of a clear public roadmap. People are asking simple questions. Will older GPUs get official support later? Will there be an experimental mode? Will AMD release a beta with warnings? Or is the answer simply no? Right now, many users feel like they are stuck in the worst possible middle ground. They are not getting a clear yes, but they are also not getting a clean and final no. And that uncertainty is exactly what keeps the issue alive. Now here is where things get even more complicated. Part of the reason people will not let this story die is that unofficial experiments have kept surfacing online. Over the past several months, there have been multiple reports about leaked files, modded setups, and community workarounds that appear to bring some form of FSR4 behavior to older RDNA 2 and RDNA 3 graphics cards. These workarounds are not perfect. They can come with lower performance, extra setup hassle, bugs, compatibility issues, or inconsistent results depending on the game. But in some ways, that makes the situation even worse for AMD. Because once enthusiasts see anything working at all, even unofficially, the argument changes. The question is no longer, is this technically impossible? The question becomes, if modders can get parts of this working, why can AMD not at least offer an optional experimental mode for people who want to try it? That is where the discussion shifts from pure engineering to expectations. AMD may be looking at the problem and thinking about quality standards, support costs, bug reports, and brand perception. The company may not want to ship a feature that technically runs on older cards but produces inconsistent results, weaker performance, or a noticeably compromised experience. That is a reasonable concern. No company wants to launch a major feature only to have users flood social media saying it looks worse than expected or runs too slowly to be useful. But from the enthusiast side, the response is just as reasonable. Many of those users are saying, fine, then label it experimental. Put a warning on it. Let people decide for themselves. And that is why this issue keeps coming back. Now let's talk about why this all exploded under a CPU launch video of all places. Because that part is important. When a company posts a major launch video, everyone knows it is one of the moments when attention is concentrated. The brand is watching. The audience is active. Journalists are paying attention. The algorithm is pushing the content. If people want to force a topic into view, that is the perfect place to do it. So the comments section becomes a protest space. The thinking is simple. If AMD is not giving a direct answer elsewhere, then flood the next big launch event with the question until somebody notices. And clearly, people did notice. That is why this story matters beyond one comment section. It shows how unresolved software and feature questions can overshadow hardware launches. AMD may have wanted the conversation to be about a high-end CPU. But if the audience sees the bigger unresolved issue as FSR4 support on older GPUs, then every launch video becomes another opportunity to drag that issue back into the spotlight. That is not where any company wants to be. Because once that dynamic starts, the audience begins to treat every new announcement the same way. Nice new product. Now answer the question you have been avoiding. And if AMD does not address it more clearly, that pattern is probably going to continue. There is also another layer here that adds fuel to the fire. Recent discussion around Sony's updated image upscaling work on PlayStation has added even more speculation about how flexible these technologies might be behind the scenes. And when people hear that related techniques may be implemented differently across platforms, that naturally leads to more questions about whether AMD's support boundaries are based on hard technical limits, quality targets, product segmentation, or some combination of all three. Now, to be fair, none of that automatically means older Radeon cards should or will receive official FSR4 support. That would be too simple. But it does feed the feeling that the full story has not been clearly explained. And once users believe there is still some room for possibility, they are not going to stop asking. So here is my take. AMD probably does have legitimate reasons for drawing the official line where it has. Machine learning-based image reconstruction is not just a marketing sticker. Hardware capability, efficiency, memory behavior, and performance consistency all matter. If AMD believes the experience only truly meets its target on its newest GPUs, then there is a logical case for limiting official support. That part is understandable. But the communication side has been weak. When users keep seeing rumors, unofficial workarounds, mixed signals, and just enough ambiguity to keep hope alive, silence stops looking careful and starts looking evasive. And that is why this turned into a mini revolt in the comments. This is not only about image quality or frame rates. It is about trust. People want a clear answer. They want a roadmap or an explanation or an experimental toggle or a direct statement that older support is not happening and why. What they do not want is to keep guessing every time AMD launches something new. So yes, AMD posted a CPU launch video. But a big part of the audience answered with a completely different question. Where is FSR 4 for older Radeon GPUs? And until AMD gives a more direct and public answer, that question is going to keep showing up under its major announcements. So now I want to hear your take. If you own an RX 6000 series or RX 7000 series card, would you accept lower performance or an experimental mode in exchange for access to FSR 4 image quality? Or do you think AMD is right to keep it locked down unless the experience is fully polished and consistent? Let me know what you think.